I'm noticing, hang on. Ezra Levant, Avi Yemeni, these are not British men. These are not men with any connection to Britain whatsoever. These are Jews. And eventually, and also a couple of people got kicked out of the Tommy Robinson movement for starting to ask questions about Jews, basically. Starting to post things on Twitter about, well, anything.
Who were these?
There was one woman called Shazia Hobbs. She was a writer for Tommy Robinson's website, and then she basically wrote an article about Jewish double standards, i.e., if we can say it about Muslims, can we also apply the same logic to Jews? And immediately she was removed from the team, and they even released a video as a hit piece against her, calling her a Nazi. And this was so over the top. It's like, hang on, what is this? These are just people asking questions. We're not overtly on the tin like a massively pro-Jewish movement, but apparently we are. And so what I've been doing, or what I did this year, and I don't think I'll repeat it, I went down to 2 Tommy Robinson rallies to see what would happen. The first one, I got arrested in under 4 minutes for my own safety. The police escorted me out there in case they did anything to me. And then at the second one, they did actually assault me. Like you said, what do you say to the people that say lefty?
Yeah.
That is what they said. Now bear in mind, I've just told you I've interviewed Nick Griffin and Jada Franson, far-right people. Tommy Robinson's stewards, because they recognised me, started screaming, "Get out of here, you lefty," which triggered his drunk fans to start kicking me. Now, they wouldn't have done that if they hadn't been yelling the word lefty, and I'm not a lefty. So I'm really concerned about what these people feel like they can do and get away with. They feel like they can just yell words and get people to attack me. And the police haven't rung me back about it. So, yeah.
So with regards to Israel, like a lot of people are talking about the migrant issue here in the UK, coloured people coming and taking over British culture. I would argue that Israel and their interference in the UK is more insidious, is more dangerous and more deep-rooted than pretty much any other country.
Yep.
And I'll just give a few facts just for the basis of the audience. There's a company called Oracle. Yeah, Oracle are used by the Home Office, the Ministry of Defence, and the NHS. They look after the data of these 3 very important institutions. And there is somebody called Larry Ellison who owns Oracle. And Larry Ellison is very close buddies with Benjamin Netanyahu, to such a degree that he actually offered directorship of Oracle to Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's Larry Ellison, he's a very big funder of the Friends of the IDF also. Very big funder. Celebrite. Don't know if you've heard of Celebrite. The police use it to hack phones. Yeah, and Celebrite, it's owned by Israeli intelligence. More specifically, forerunners called the Unit 8200. Yeah. So, and in fact, the owner of Celebrite was boasting as well and saying we have remote control access to this data.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, this is data that the police has got from civilians. Then you've got NICE systems as well. NICE systems is owned, well, it looks after data from the Foreign Office, and the police also uses in their investigations. And the owner of NICE systems, in fact, the people that own NICE systems, they own Israel's biggest arms company, Elbit Systems also. And last but not least, yeah, this is actually got from Low Key.
Low Key's so good.
And that's what you probably could tell, because he's very good at kind of following the trail.
Yeah, exactly. I always defer to him. If people say, how can you prove it? I just go watch a Low Key video.
Yeah. If you look at BT is British Telecoms. I mean, as British as it gets. And the owner is somebody called Patrick Drahi. And Patrick Drahi is somebody that owns I-24, which is the Israeli news channel that perpetrated that lie, or that was the starting of the lie of the 40 beheaded babies. That was Patrick Drahi. And I-24 has been used, it's a company set up by Haaretz as something close to Netanyahu and Netanyahu's family. And of course, he supports organizations that are building on settlements as well. So this is just in case somebody's watching and thinking, oh, a Muslim and a lefty talking about stuff that they
Far right I am.
that they don't understand. So this is a bit of information that they can that they can check up as well, with regards to the origins and the tentacles. I don't want to be anti-Semitic.
I don't go mentioning octopuses.
Or let's just say the web.
Yeah.
The web of influence that Israel has, not the Jews, that Israel has in British society.
I mean, we will probably differ on this. I have no issue with using the phrase the Jews, and I actually think it's essential that we do, because I do not mean all Jews when I say the Jews. And I'm demonstrating at Speaker's Corner how much people react when you use those two words together. Dave Chappelle had a great routine about it, saying anyone who ever used these two words together got in severe trouble. But they shouldn't, because you don't, when you talk about the British, the Chinese, no, it's never implied that you're talking about every British peasant if you're talking about what the British Empire did. So that is why I try and use the word Jews instead of Zionist and Israeli, because a lot of people make excuses, and I honestly think that's how they get away with it. I have so many people saying, not everyone in the IDF is Jewish, how dare you? And I'm like, well, I think most of them are. I think the vast majority of them are. Oh, Israel and Jews aren't the same thing. Okay, but Israel is definitely full of Jews, isn't it? Definitely got a lot of Jews in it.
There was somebody called Shulamit Aloni.
Yeah.
Shulamit Aloni used to be in the cabinet, is the Israeli cabinet, and she won the Israel 2000 prize as well. Yeah, which is a very prestigious prize in Israel. She said, anti-Semitism? What anti-Semitism? It's a trick.
It's a trick. I remember this quote.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a trick to divert any criticism, legitimate criticism, towards Zionist Israel.
Yes, I mean it is, and I think at Speaker's Corner we really get to show it off.
You know what? I think a lot of people are walking past.
Yeah, what is this even for? I wanted to say one more thing.
Where's Abdul Karim? Oh, he's gone. Because we could have maybe gone to a quieter spot.
It was just
because I think it's really annoying.
I know, yeah, you're right. But
if
anyway.
it's still picking it up, the one last thing I wanted to say was about you were describing the tentacles, if we can use that. I really want to get this point across to people.
Yes.
I think that Muslims are the scapegoats of this, and so the white guys are told there's loads of Muslims here and they want to impose Sharia law, and they are told Sharia law is coming down the line, and not only that, you should fear it because it's scary and they'll behead you and whatever. This problem that's coming down the line, I think distracts from the fact that we are already occupied. I think it works complete cover, and no one really looks at it because they're looking over there at this perceived problem that is in the future, not the problem that we actually very, very clearly have. But they're very clever in terms of, like, I think the thing with Islam is that it's so obvious. You guys have beards and wear hijabs, and you have mosques and you pray, and so we can see it.
No, it's all right for now.
You
Because
can't.
I think
You can't see Zionism. You like a Tommy Robinson supporter. There are no clues that there's anything untoward going on here because it's so well hidden. It took me years to actually discover. Wait, what is Zionism? How does Tommy Robinson relate to Zionism?
Have you seen the clip in which he goes, if there was ever a war, I would be on the side of Israel, because why not?
Yeah, and that is now evidenced by what's been going on the last 10 months. He's been pushing out propaganda for Israel, so he is very literally fighting the war for Israel. He may not be there with a gun, but he's quite a key part of it because he's probably the main guy in Britain trying to drum up support for this nonsense, at least among a certain demographic. And yeah, it's criminal. And not only that, he's scammed so many people. he commits crimes every time he does anything. He broke his bail conditions to broadcast that film a couple of months ago, and I think it's quite sad about the British people who support him, because they've just got such low standards. They don't like people like me coming along and saying, "Can you not do better? Can you not?" And we've discussed this a lot last week. Is that they point at the Muslims as bad people when the Muslims are quite obviously living a more faith-filled life. So is there actually a bit of insecurity going on here? Because there's no part of me that wants to fix any of these problems by going and looting Sainsbury's.
Greg's.
By going and stealing a load of steak bakes. That's not a very valid way to express your condolences. To
Burning a Citizens Advice Bureau that ironically helps the people in the area.
Yeah, and it shows that these guys have no direction because they're not doing something productive. What did I do the day after the race riots? I came down here, stood on my box, and had a conversation with the public to see what we're going to do. Because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm expected to fight you. I think that's very unreasonable. I think this is a better path through. And so that's what I'm doing. But I believe I'm only doing that because I'm coming to it from a place of faith. And I have a theological framework around this conflict or genocide. Whereas I think these boys are white. And they see themselves as white, and white doesn't have a faith attached to it. You're just a white boy, and that's not anchored to any meaning or moral code. And that means you can justify smashing up a Sainsbury's because you're fed up of Muslims, even though that makes no sense. It's not a legitimate political action. Yeah, I think it's because they've identified as white instead of Christian. They've got no sense of morality. And Tommy Robinson will never tell them off. He'll never step in after they've done something awful like that and say, "Boys, you took that too far. I'm ashamed of you." He'll never do that.
Out of interest, with regards to when you were in that group, the right wing, would you say far right, right wing?
I would actually, a few years ago, these were known as the civic nationalists because Nick Griffin and Jada Franson and that kind of wing, we are people, I count myself as one of them, genuinely. People that do not see the problem as Islam and Muslims, but the problem is a massively declining birth rate and a massive influx of immigration, meaning that eventually the English become a minority in England. I think that is a genuine concern.
Brother, dawah.
Like, I think that's... I think it's a little bit heartless when people try and argue that I don't get to be concerned or scared about that, because I don't think you'd impose that on any other country. If any other country, gradually the native population were just shrinking in number and the immigrants were growing. I don't know, it is a concern. So
we just fixed this, yeah?
Yeah, sure, man.
I don't think it's picking you up properly.
So the deal is that characters like Tommy Robinson, Douglas Murray, even down to Julia Hartley-Brewer, the entire roster of Talk TV and GB News, I'm talking every producer on that channel, is basically pushing this narrative that I disagree with, which is it's Muslims, rather than it's an overall demographic crisis caused by two things. Loads of immigrants being brought in primarily because of capitalism, and no children being born by the native population. That's what's actually going on. It's Muslims and they want to impose Sharia. No, I don't think that's going on. I think Muslims are here and they're having babies because they are commanded to by God, while the native population aren't, and therefore there's more Muslims.
And there's another reason as well, is because we're not buying into this whole LGBT phenomena. Exactly. We're sticking with traditional values as much as possible. Obviously we're under attack as well, but whilst you have the Church of England now, I think they're trying to drop the word church, LGBT, they're becoming, they're whitewashing that to make it more acceptable. And if the mother is the father and the father is the son and the son is the daughter, how are you expected to have a family when you've got the father trying to have a relation with a pogo stick?
Well, the church takes its cues, the Church of England especially, takes its cues from culture on how to think morally, right? That is arse backwards, to phrase it that way, is that essentially you've got the clergy worried about being seen as backwards. They need to move with the times, so they read columns in The Guardian about LGBT acceptance and think, oh, we've got to catch up to this, which is crazy because they're having their moral code dictated to them by atheist liberals, but they want to play catch up with the atheist liberals. So I mean, this is why I end up in Speaker's Corner every 2 weeks having a wonderful conversation with Muslims, and yeah, we've got my Catholic friends, but I'm kind of despairing because I was friends with 3 ministers throughout the COVID lockdowns because I thought they were immoral, so did these reverends. We bonded over that because I don't think Jesus would have required a vaccine passport for you to go visit him. It sort of flew in the face of the parable of the leper, etc. And the same applies to Islam. I don't think you should have required a vaccine passport to do the Hajj pilgrimage. It was the pandemic interfered with people's faiths, and so when I met 3 reverends who could see it that way, I was really excited. And then Gaza happened, and their podcast the next week was about wokeness. And then there was another one about wokeness or climate change. And they never, ever spoke up for Gaza. And as a Christian or somebody that does believe in Jesus Christ, I'm having a bit of a crisis of knowing how to interpret this because I look at the Muslims. I went along to the Free Palestine rally in my hometown because we've got one of these towns that, according to Tommy Robinson's narrative, should be at each other's throats. We've got a significant Muslim population and a big white population. Everyone agrees on Gaza. It's actually, I'm really lucky. In my town, on the side of the church, there's a lovely, they write messages in chalk, like the kids can go and scroll stuff. And it's all Palestine, and it has been since October 7th. So we have this rather cohesive society in my town where I think people, their kids go to school together, they have conversations, and people aren't scared of one another.
Move, yeah? Yeah, let's move. I think we're in the thick of it, yeah.
Well, I think I might wrap up.
Yeah, let's go.
Good shot.
representation. In the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, somebody did exactly this. Then he asked, it's up to you now. Do we kill the person, to the family members of the survived individual? And they opted to kill him. So a lot of people don't understand this. In fact, if a non-Muslim that's living under you gets imprisoned, we're told under, and this is in the Hanbali madhab, we're told that you are to exhaust your resources to free him. Now I was speaking to somebody who was a very pro right-wing, Tommy as well, and he was surprised. I said,
I might have watched this last week.
Oh, really?
Actually. I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I watched
and
it.
he was kind of, and I was like, this is something unheard of here in the West. I mean, you have loads of examples. I mean, whether you agree with the notion of Shamima Begum or not, but the fact that Shamima Begum is somebody born in this country, is a British citizen.
Oh, don't worry, I can see the double standards.
And she comes back, and suddenly, even though she's groomed, she's underage. And Nick, most importantly, it emerged, and this was part of the case as well, that was led by a Kunji. The Secret Service of Canada facilitated her to go across the pond.
Yeah.
And this is something that again was brought to the courts, and it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I do think sadly it's so confusing with the Tommy camp, because like I said to you, they are supposed to be on the tin not racist, because Nick Griffin and Jada Frampton are the real racists, right? And so for years, Tommy Robinson was pushing this line that it's all about Islam, it's a belief system. I'm sorry, that went right out the window last month when there's just gangs of white lads beating up anyone black or brown that they can and claiming it's got something to do with Muslims.
They're claiming that it was a stabbing in Southport.
It's just nonsense.
Allegedly is Muslim, but then when they found out it was Axel Rudakabana, who again was a choir boy at the local church, the churches were unharmed.
It didn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to matter. It was always mosques that were going to be targeted, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, because, there are problems in our country because of our government. But you've ended up setting fire to a mosque.
Yeah.
We need to talk about how that has happened, because you have diagnosed this problem completely wrong. And it's so immoral as well to just go out and destroy other people's property, especially places of worship. I mean, it's one of the lowest things that you can do. But I believe that these guys have all been trapped. So you've got all of these big prison sentences that are coming now for saying blasphemous things at protests and swearing at coppers and stuff. And they're very harsh sentences, which again is only going to make more grievances for the Tommy Robinson fans, because they've
martyring those people.
They've got this narrative about two-tier policing.
Yes.
And I find it really shocking, because it was the same. They're going on two-tier policing. Muslims can do whatever they want.
I don't get that, because Palestinian flags are being banned, but not Israeli flags.
It's like, I don't think that they care. I think that they truly are just tapping into something racist, because did we not see a Muslim's head get stamped on by a copper at the beginning of that week? I don't think Muslims are exempt from police doing nasty things. And the one that I really hammer home is Maria Hussein, the woman with the coconut placard.
Yes.
Because that is a satirical cartoon.
Yeah.
That's a satirical cartoon. And you've got this whole ecosystem set up on GB News and Tommy Robinson, all of them. They've got shows called Free Speech Nation, right? Andrew Doyle presents a show called Free Speech Nation. I think it's on Saturday night.
The biggest irony.
They would never defend Maria Hussein for holding up a cartoon. I think it's a decent bit of satire, personally. I think it worked.
You believe we can't take cartoons, but here again is another cartoon. But
exactly. And then they would bring out, but Charlie Hebdo, whatever. It's just nasty, because because I know people that are genuinely concerned about these kind of things, and we're genuinely scared.
With Charlie, you said Charlie Hebdo. What was very interesting, I think, it rang a bell that Charlie Hebdo, I think a couple of years later, made a anti-Semitic cartoon, and that was the reason that there were significant issues with that publication. A lot of people don't know that, because that gets brushed under the carpet. The New York Times, they had a cartoon of Benjamin Netanyahu as well, and they had to retract and apologize. In fact, Priti Patel was depicted as a bull. again in
Yeah.
satirical cartoon. But no, that was offensive to her Hindu faith. That was okay. They had to retract and apologize or whatnot. But when it comes to this, we're supposed to be,
I actually think that one of Tommy Robinson's sort of objectives is, because we talk about British values a lot, right? What are British values? They're being eroded, blah, 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 blah. I think he's trying to impose that the right to draw offensive cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad is a British value, which I would dispute. I do not think it is within Britain. I think that, yeah, you should legally be allowed to do it because we're not an Islamic country and it wouldn't really make sense to have that as a law preventing you from doing it. But in terms of, is it good moral behaviour?